After two games that saw Toronto FC beat the lowly Vancouver Whitecaps, one in Major League Soccer, of course, and one on the weekend that saw Toronto FC retain for the third year in a row the Voyageurs Cup, a trip to suburban New Jersey, just outside of New York City, a little town called Harrison, where the Red Bulls have their new stadium, saw the Reds go down to defeat 5-0 versus the New York Red Bulls last night. That's reality for you. I think perhaps the last two games were perhaps more a reflection on, yes, some advancements that the Reds are making under new head coach Aaron Vinter, but I think it also, with all due respect to Vancouver, spoke to the quality of the Whitecaps more than it did to perhaps the quality of Toronto FC. Across the pitch last night, whether it be, again, Greg Sutton didn't really have much to do. Stephen Fry didn't really have much to do either, other than watch the ball go past him. He couldn't be blamed for anything last night. You had a TFC team that really for 30 minutes early on looked halfway decent. João Plata in particular making some nice runs. Needs to work a little bit, I think, on his strength when it comes to his shots. A lot of his shots after some nice runs and some nice cut-ins from the wing were a little bit, I think, weak overall. Whether that's a reflection on his physical strength or tiredness or ability, I can't speak to. I've never played the game at that level, so I honestly don't know. But I think the cavalry can't come soon enough, and I'll get to that in a minute. Now, again, as I said a moment ago, I've never really played the game very much, so I'm not going to sit here and judge individual players on their individual skill sets. That's not for me to do. That's something for the TFC coaching staff and pundits much more knowledgeable than myself to do. And last night I got into a little debate on Twitter last night as well, while I was tweeting during the game was on. I got into a little debate with a good friend of mine who actually took me to task on a few things that I said on Twitter that I want to talk about today as well. There were a couple of stats that I pulled out last night at the end of that game that I wanted to share with you, that I shared with my followers on Twitter last night. And by the way, my Twitter handle is @BigNewf, BGNEWF, if anybody is interested. I wrote this one, and again, I'm paraphrasing here. The worst ever record in Major League Soccer for negative goal differential, you know, the number of goals scored minus the goals conceded, the highest goal differential to the negative in Major League Soccer history was -36. I'm not sure who actually holds that record. It could have dated anywhere from the mid-90s up to, of course, last year. I don't know. But again, -36 is the record. 19 games in this year for Toronto FC in Major League Soccer. That record for the Reds currently sits at -17. So they're only 15 goals to the negative away from holding one of the most dubious records in all of Major League Soccer history. That to me is a serious indictment on the quality of the defending, whether it be the coaching setup, whether it be the way the team's playing, whether it be the midfielders in front of them, whether it be the goaltender at the back of them, whether it be the quality of the four defenders on the pitch, whether it be the horrendous injuries that TFC has had at that position, with three of their top four center backs currently out on injury right now. One of them, Adrian Can, the team's MVP from last season, gone for the season. You can take your pick as to which of those or which combination of those factors you want to actually take into consideration. But at the end of the day, here we are, -17 on 19 games. The Reds have 8 more road games to go, and out of 9 road games so far this season, they have yet to secure a victory. They have road games including Saturday at Houston, followed in no particular order by Columbus, Kansas City, Chivas, Philly, Portland, DC United, where they'll see Dero, of course, and Chicago. So some of those games are going to be pretty tough. Some of them, I think the Reds might have a chance of actually getting some points in. But other than the Philly game, the 6-2 debacle at home earlier this season, that was probably Stephen Fry's worst game that I've ever seen him play as a Red. Perhaps the only real bad game that he's had in his time here, in my humble opinion. There's some tough road games ahead, but there's some winnable ones there as well. At home, other than that Philly game and maybe the DC United game, which was 3-0, the Reds have been relatively competitive, a lot of draws. And they've had a number of draws away as well to some challenging places like Colorado, for example, and like Dallas. But 34 goals conceded in 19 Major League Soccer games truly speaks to the job at the back that I think Paul Mariner has to address during this upcoming transfer window, and what Aaron Vinter has to address from a coaching perspective between now and the end of the season. So whether it be any of those aforementioned circumstances, whether it be Williams and Can, our arguably best two center backs, out for a long, long time, whether it be Nana Adekora, and again, whether he's on the outs with the club, whether the club really doesn't like him anymore, whether he's taken a step back in his development, whether he's not the right kind of player for this new kind of system they're bringing in. Again, take your pick as to what combination of circumstances are the reason. The bottom line is that the players that we have to back those guys up are simply not of the quality to expect much more than what we expected last night from in competing against a team with the offensive quality of the New York Red Bulls. So getting back to the overall goals against, 34 in 19 Major League Soccer games works out to be an average of 1.78 per game. That's how many goals the Reds are letting in home and away every game this season if you extrapolate everything out. And again, there were a couple of nasty games. You got the 5-goal game last night. You got that 6-goal game against Philly. You've got that 3-0 game against DC at home. You have another couple. I think it was a 3-1 game in Salt Lake City earlier this season. Again, take your pick. There's a number of poor games that the Reds have played this season. But if you extrapolate that over the entire season, it's 1.78. Going forward, it's been less than a goal a game. It's been 0.89 in reply, which is 0.89 goals difference between the amount conceded and the amount scored. Now, I'm not going to be a hypocrite and sit here and judge the players when I don't really have the knowledge, personal knowledge, to actually judge what they're going through. I think a couple of things from last night looked really painfully obvious to me. One, there is a true lack of quality overall in this team compared to some of the top echelon clubs in this league. And again, on any given day, any team can beat any other team. And you are going to get results, and you are going to have days when circumstances, injuries, tactics, attitude, what they had for lunch, whatever the case may be, are all going to have an impact on the luck, referees, you name it, whatever it is. All of those things are going to have an impact on the results at the end of the day. But these numbers, and this is what I was getting into the debate on Twitter last night, these numbers and the results on the board 5 years in for this club speak to the fact that, with a few exceptions, where we've had some decent stretches with, again, I'm going back to Can and Adekora, for example, last year at certain times and in 2009, we had some periods of time where our center backs looked really strong. We've never really had, other than a stretch of time where Marvell Wynn looked half decent in the position, and with Richard Eckersley this year in the position as well, we've never really had any quality fullbacks either. With due respect, when you're relying upon an 18-year-old in Henry, a journeyman in Dan Gargan, and another journeyman who's hurt, by the way, who's a really nice guy, who's hurt, by the way, in Ty Harden, to be the stability of your defense, I think you're going to know what you're going to end up with at the end of the day, and here we are. But you know, all is not lost. TFC has qualified for CONCACAF. The CONCACAF games have gone on sale. The prices are up, by the way. They're not as low as I would hope. I would have hoped they would have been, based on a post I put up earlier in the week, and I'll post those prices in this on the post with this video blog today as well. The emails have gone out to the season ticket holders and to the waiting list people as well in regards to a pre-sale, which I think starts on the 13th of July. But I digress for a moment. getting back to what's going to be happening over the next few weeks, TFC has this game in Houston on Saturday versus the Dynamo. If you remember last year, that was part of the Nick Dasovic era. D-Ro scored a goal off a set piece to win the game in injury time. TFC has won 1, drawn 1, and lost 2 in Houston. Houston, with due respect to them, is a good team, but they're not the quality of the Red Bulls. There's going to be some players coming back from injury, a la Peterson, Gordon. So TFC might have a substantially better effort on the pitch coming up than they did last night against the Red Bulls. And of course, the players can probably leave a little bit more of their game on the pitch, knowing that they've got an 11-day gap between the Houston game and the game against Dallas on the 20th, which see the introduction of Danny Koevermans and Torsten Frings into the spine of that team. And speaking of spine, I think TFC is solid at the back when it comes to Stefan Frei. I think he's as good a shot stopper as there is in Major League Soccer. I think looking at him just stats-wise is a little misleading. Yes, he's given up more goals than any goaltender in all of Major League Soccer, but he's also made the most saves of any goaltender in Major League Soccer as well. I think, again, as I stated a few moments ago, I think he's only had one bad game all season, and that was that Philly game where he let in a couple of soft ones. But the entire team had a bad game that day as well. So I'm not really going to hold him to task too much. I think they're solid at the back. I think there's the real possibility with a real strong, technical, gifted holding type player like a Koevermans up top in a 4-3-3 for TFC to be much more solidified and much more effective at the front. And again, with a healthy Alan Gordon coming off the bench, I see some really good, strong possibilities there. I think a world-class player like Torsten Frings is going to help tighten up TFC defensively. He's going to be parked right in front of those center backs. He's going to hopefully make Julian de Guzman, if he sticks around, that much better as well. Again, giving Julian a bit more of an ability to use his skill at passing the ball to get the ball forward to the wingers or to the strikers in order to be a little more effective going forward. But the missing pieces, of course, are some quality center backs. Decoy Williams is still a few weeks away, I'm hearing. Again, Harden is a question mark. Eckersley is a fullback, really not a center back. So obviously you want to have him out on the left or the right flank, preferably the right flank, I think, with Eckersley protecting things. So one, or if not two, center backs really truly need to come in during this transfer window and be ready to play against Dallas at home on the 20th and against Real Esteli on the 27th in the Champions League qualifier match as well. There's going to be enough room, even after the two DP signings, there's at least enough room on the under the salary cap and with allocation space, based on my calculations anyway, to bring in one or if not two quality center backs, whether that's going to be done via a trade with some of the surplus midfielders the club has, whether that's going to be done through signings of players from overseas, or a combination of both, of course, remains to be seen. But if TFC is to get anything from this season, and to prevent more disheartening matches like last night being really the norm rather than the exception, I think they have to do something, bringing in one or preferably two better center backs during that window, and not just stopgap solutions, long-term solutions as well, so that this rebuilding process can truly take hold and start to continue. So that's it. Numbers don't tell the entire story; they tell part of the story. But I really think the story at the end of the day is that the Reds definitely need to bring in one or two center backs in this window, or I think this season is going to be a foregone conclusion, both in CONCACAF and in Major League Soccer. Thanks again for watching, everybody. You folks have a great day, and I'll have another video blog up on Sunday after the Houston game Saturday night. Thanks again for watching. Cheers.